situations and environments. For an example, you need to communicate certain things to the university administration, to your department, to your faculty, and also maybe you want to communicate certain things to your bank or to maybe a telecommunication company, right. So, still though we are in an age where every sorts of social media and different modes of communication are so much trending, I mean all the media kind of and all the short and very easy ways of communication, still we tend to do this written communication. We tend to follow, we tend to apply the written forms of communication, especially letter writing, still to get our things done. So, you will experience this for sure when you come to the university, but even maybe now itself you are experiencing these things, because for certain situations people ask for a written piece of paper or kind of a letter to communicate our requirement, our request. So, this is the main reason that I chose this particular topic to discuss today. And also I have experienced this when I am in the university, when we see the several different requirements and requests comes through the students' end as a letter, there are a lot of mistakes that we do. So, though we have learned these lessons in our school days, but I want you all to recall and also focus your attention on a particular one official format, one of the accepted formats of formal letter writing. So, today's session outcomes are to identify the format of an official letter and also to compose official letter, to write an official letter. So, keep in mind there are several different types of letters as well. For example, letter of request, right, letter of invitation, or there are different letter of inquiry, right. So, depending on the purpose, depending on the reason that we write the letter, there are different types of letters. So, we will learn few of those letter types and some of the expressions that we can use as well. Well, we will move on. So, writing official letters is an important function of professionals. So, now you are just at a university level, and I hope you all are having plans and dreams of going to a professional life, becoming a professional at a professional environment. So, there writing letters, writing official or formal letters is really important. They get to write official letters for various purposes. An official letter is important in many aspects. The letter reflects the organization and the sender. So, why we need to focus this much about a letter, right? Someone can think, it's just a letter, we just need to write what we want. No. If you think of a situation like you are working in a certain company or an office and you are writing a letter to a person, to a customer, to another employer in another company. So, then the person who receives it means who takes it. So, once he go through it, once he go through the language of it, once he goes through the format of it, they can understand, this company is maybe they have seriously thought about even simply composing this letter. Even a simple message, we can judge, we can come to an evaluation about the company, isn't it, right? Imagine there is a huge spelling mistake, there is a huge format mistake. So, what do we usually come to as a conclusion? This does not work professionally, this company does not follow the particular format, right. This company has not still practicing all the necessary professional practices. So, this is a bad image for your company. So, from the simple letter that you sent, if there are mistakes, there can be a huge impact to your entire company. Okay. So, that is why we need to be very much careful, very much attentive and follow the correct format of an official letter or a formal letter. So, I hope you all have heard about two different types of letters, the main two divisions, right. So, my dear students via Zoom, can you tell me what are the two main types of letters that you have learned maybe earlier, you have heard earlier? What are the two main different types of letters?
Formal letters and informal letters.
Yes?
Formal and informal.
Very good. Thank you very much. Formal and informal. So, can someone say to me what is a formal letter? Now, you already know, but yes, in your words, what is a formal letter? What is a formal letter? When do we write a formal letter? An example maybe? Yes, my dear students? Or when do we write an informal letter? Formal, informal. What is this difference? Yes? I know you know the answer. Just let me know.
Informal letters used to official duties.
Informal or formal, Puta? Informal letters for official or unofficial?
Official.
Informal are for
Unofficial.
unofficial, right? Yes, informal are for unofficial. I'll just show you that so because we need to know this correctly, right? Okay, we'll start from the usual one, formal, right? Formal are used for official purpose, right? When you come to work, when you want to communicate to a company, right, to any office, right, maybe to the district office, you go to meet Gramaladari, right, the Grama Sevaka, so all these. Informal are where you use it for personal, right. So, when you write your letters to family, friends, right, if you can remember maybe when you were in school days, maybe you have written letters to foreign friends, isn't it? In pen pal, maybe you have, right. So, formal means official, right. Formal means official, or we also call Puta professional. Professional, official, formal, all are same, right, where we use the communication in a business environment, working environment, right. Informal mean, when you use this in, right, the prefix in that works the word opposite meaning, informal mean, what happens? It's the personal. When you write to your family, when you write to your friends, your loved ones, if you have your someone in abroad, right. So, then you use this informal way of writing. Okay, now did you understand these two types? Formal means official, professional, right, this context, and informal means personal, right. So, we are focusing on today about the formal letters. We will go to the second point. If the letter is not drafted in the appropriate format, drafted mean අපි ලියනවට කියනවා පුතා draft කරනවා කියලා, like we come up with a we line up everything and we come up with a draft, right. Can you remember I told you in paraphrasing and summarizing, I told you there is no, you can't make just the final copy at once, you have to go through some drafts, draft 1, draft 2, then only you can get a very successful and effective summary after some drafts. So, that is what here. If the letter is not drafted in the appropriate format using the accurate language, it can harm the image of the sender as well as the organization. That's what I told you. So, even though you are the person who composes the letter, even if somebody else has signed it, then the image will be impacted to the entire company or the entire organization, right? Therefore, the professionals should be careful when drafting official letters. So, letter writing is a skill that every professional should practice, every professional should develop, because at some point in our life, imagine that you are not working, but even then you have to write an official letter. For example, I will tell you, if you have no good coverage of signal, right, or network issues at your home, if you want to communicate it to a company, you can go and talk. But still, if you have communicated through kind of a written letter, then it is more, it has a huge impact. I mean, the employer or the particular person who is, or the service provider will be surely attending to that, because you have given a kind of a written thing. If they haven't attended to it, you can show, I have given you this request earlier, but still it is not done, something like that. So, this is why written communication is so much important, right. So, always, my dear students, when you want to, if you are concerning about, if you are trying to deal with some serious matters, try to switch for written communication. That is very important, because you can keep evidence with you, right. For example, if you want to make some request, or if you want to excuse maybe even a lecturer, please, if you can write a letter, you can do that, or else even if you can send an email. All these are identified as official professional communication modes. Texts, WhatsApp, social media, they are not taken as valid communication tools. They are just for personal business, or sorry, personal kind of communication. But if you use email, right, a letter, they have a huge gravity. They can have a huge impact on your communication, right. So, that is why these, especially these letters, the formal letters or the official letters are really important, right. So, now you know what is informal, formal, and how these formal letters are, or the official letters are really crucial, really important for us. So, now we will move on to the format. My dear students, keep in mind, in most of concepts such as write in an email, write in a memorandum, write in a letter, right. So, most of these communication types, what we look for is the format. Format, this is very important, right. Why? Because when you do not have a format, you can, I mean, anyone can write in any way that they like. But professionalism, becoming formal or being formal means you have to follow a format. Why do we wear a sari when you are a lecturer? Why do you wear a tie or a shirt or a particular professional suit when you go to a company? What is the reason? That is the particular format that we follow. That is the discipline that we follow. That is just an example, it depends on the institution. But I am telling you, when you come to a concept like letter writing, email writing, memorandum writing, notice writing, all these entails a particular format. So, I hope you can, if you can remember, maybe when your teachers taught you these lessons, always a format is allocated with a mark. If you have followed the particular format, then you are awarded a mark specifically for that, right. So, when there is a format, you can't get away from the format, you have to follow it. So, see, remember my dear students, in formal letters or official letters, we use a format known as full block letter format, right? This format is called as full block format. So, every component of this letter, that means the heading, the address, the salutation, the body, the signature, identification enclosures, all these components are aligned to the left. So, go through if you have received, maybe if you have received a letter of acceptance to the university, or your acceptance to, your eligibility to get selected to a university. So, maybe you can see whether you have received the letter in this format. This is an accepted format, but sometimes this format is not essentially used by certain institutions as well. Sometimes you might see simple changes as well. So, what is the best thing is you can adopt this kind of a format, but if you are working under the particular institution, especially when you work, right, then you can follow the practice or follow the particular format of that particular institution. For example, if you are supposed to write a reply letter to something, so you can check the institution format and then reply accordingly. But if not, this is the format that you should follow, where the main characteristic is all the elements are left aligned, right. So, if you take the sheet of paper, so everything is left aligned, all the components of address, date, salutation, topic, body, enclosure, all these are started in the left corner, or we call it left aligned. Also, first sentences of paragraphs are not indented. What is the meaning of indented? I hope you know. Can you remember when you write essay? You leave a space and start. අපි පටන් ගන්න නේද අලුත් paragraph එකක් ලියද්දී පොඩි space එකක් දීලා පටන් ගන්න. That is we call as indented. Right? So, in full block format, we don't do this indenting. We start from the very corner. Right? We do not leave a space and start. We start from the same part. අපි එහෙම space එකක් තියන්නේ නැහැ. Right? In a full block format, there are, now see, you can just simply go through, there are a lot of specific instructions about the spaces, right. So, this actually you can follow, but what we usually do is we leave a space after each key component, that is what we do, right. So, but according to some sources it says that there are some specific spaces as well, right. So, the spaces is not that much of a matter, but you should leave a space at the end of each component, right. But the most important thing is all the components are left aligned, right. We will move on and see this structure or this format, or what are these key components. So, remember we start with the sender's address, right. So, now see, who is the sender, my dear students? Sender means who writes the letter, who posts the letter. Liuma yavana, liuma liyana kena. Sender, right. Then we have the other party, receiver, who receives it, who receives the letter. Liuma labena kena. So, the sender's address usually is included in letterhead. So, letterhead is also, I think maybe sometimes you have already seen by now, right. So, where you see the logo of the company, the address of the company, the telephone details, the dates, right. All these things are included in a letterhead. Usually a letterhead comes at the top, right, at the top of the page. So, maybe it is in color, right, it has a company name, company logo, right, that is a letterhead. So, as we are talking about the formal letters or official letters, they are only we use actually letterheads, right, and also these letterheads sometimes, maybe sometimes the company does not have a letterhead as well. So, then you can use the sender's address. Remember, if there is a letterhead, we do not use the sender's address. If there is no letterhead, we use the sender's address. If you are not using letterhead, include the sender's address at the top of the letter, one line above the date. Do not write the sender's name or title as it is included in the letter's closing. Include only the street address and the city, right. So, we do not usually write the sender's name or the title, but again if you feel that you want to include the name, then you can include it, right. So, we sometimes include the name as well, right, but if not, we can just write the address only, right, the address. For example, if you are a manager of a certain division, right, manager HR division, ABC company, that is it, right. But if you feel like you need to add the name, then you can write M. Ratnayaka, manager, human resource division, ABC company, and also maybe a city, Badulla, right. That is the sender's address, that is the first part. So, remember this point, a letter, if there is a letterhead, we do not use. Then we will move on to the other component, that is the date, right. So, sometimes my dear students, you might have seen the date comes first, right. The date comes first mean if there is a letterhead, then immediately after the letterhead the date comes, right. So, we will go to the date. The date line is used to indicate the date letter was written. However, if your letter is completed over a number of days, use the date it was finished in the date line. So, that do not usually happen to us, we can just compose a letter within a day, is not it. People tend to use both American and British systems when indicating the date. Now, see here. So, people tend to use this two different ways, American and British. However, if you are writing to an American company, it is important that you use the American date format. Now, you must be wondering why we need to worry about American or British, we are anyway Sri Lanka. That is true, but keep in mind, my dear students, there are two different ways as American way of writing the date and the British way of writing the date. So, then what happens is, now I know most of you all are so much happy and eager to go abroad to do higher studies or to find a job in overseas, is not it, right. So, in such a situation, this would be a very effective way. If you know that you are writing to an American university or maybe to a British university, I mean the English that they use, and if you can be very particular about that, imagine you are writing to American company. So, if you can follow the American style of the date, then it would be something, a very good idea about you, is not it? Why? You have been so keen enough to choose that particular date. Maybe if a person, that is the way how people judge you, right. If you are so much careful, very attentive to even the very simple things, so maybe if you are finding a job role, so the person there would like to take you in because you are so much concerned about it, right. So, these are some of the tips, right. So, this is the these are the two different ways of writing the date, American and British, right. So, for British English, let us say the day is followed by the month, which is then followed by the year. Now, did you see British what happens? Let us see here, right. So, in British what they use? The date, the month and the year, right. So, you can write in both these ways, 6 September 2019 or 6 September 2019, right? And in American English, the month comes before the day, right? The month comes before the day, which means you cannot use of and rarely use ordinal numbers, right? What happens here? The month comes first, then the day, and you put a comma there, and then the year comes. Did you understand? Right? Now, what's the difference? Let's see, if you were to write a formal business letter, you would write out the entire date including the full month, right? In British English, you can write this way, the date comes first, then the month comes and the year comes. And in American English, what is the order? The month come and the date, the comma you put, and then the year, right? So, now you might be wondering why we can't use the usual way we write. What is the usual way we write? You put like this. What's the usual way? Now, today is 8th of September. And you can also write this in. Now tell me, if you want to write in this way, what is the correct way from the final two, this last two? What's the correct one? Yes? Yes, my dear students, FOM? What is the correct one? I need an answer because you make mistakes.
First one.
Very good. It's the first one. If you can remember at your school, maybe your teacher have taught you, the first way is the way of writing in English, isn't it? And this is the like in Sinhala way, right? So, you must make it a point to write in this way if you are using the English language, right? If you are using this date format, right? Make it a practice, Buddha. And if you want to write in this way, so no worries, you can use either this American or British, but we usually use the British English in our Sri Lankan context. So, maybe you can use the British way of writing or the American way, right? But we actually have seen most of the time we are using the American way in letters like this. You can write in full numerical, full numbers as well, no worries, but if it is in English, you have to use the first one, right? So, hereafter don't do any of the mistakes in this date, right? But that's how it's important when we talk about professional, formal, official things. Even the simple thing matters, right? Okay, we'll move on to the next component. Now, can you remember we talked about the full block format, all the components are left aligned, right? And we started with the first component as the sender's address. And can you remember, if you don't have a sender's address, what do you use? A letterhead. And then we came to the date. In date also there are two things that we need to focus, the American and British way. You need to be very careful, and if you write in numerics, you need to follow that particular order. Now we come to the other important, inside address, right? So, the inside address is the recipient's address. The recipient, the receiver, who is this? The person who gets the letter, right, who receives the letter. It is always best to write to a specific individual at the firm to which you are writing. Now, this is these are lessons to you as well, my dear students. When you write a letter, always try to write to a particular person. Now, imagine you want to get something of your birth certificate, right? If you can find the particular division or the particular person who is involved in birth certificates part, then you can find the name of that person and write to that particular person, right. So, then what happens? If you do not have the person's name, you can do some research, right. Now, most of the institutions have websites, right, and they have all the information there, their name, their post, what is their division, what is the area that they are supervising, right. So, you can do some search, that is the best thing that you can do, right. Now, what we අපි මොකද හරිම ලේසි නිසා කරන්නේ dear sir, dear madam කියලා ලියනවා. That is easy for us. But if you can be that is why I told you, if you can be very keen, if you can be I mean get serious this your purpose or your request, then you can go an extra mile and search the particular person's name. Person, right. So, include a personal title such as Miss, Mrs, Mr or Doctor. Right. Now, there is a question for you from me, right. Now, the title business is very interesting in this time period, isn't it? අපි මේ title කියන එක. We have Miss, Mrs, Mr, MX. You should know these things, huh? Remember, there is a full stop at each of these titles. Now, tell me, what is the difference between these three Miss? Can you all tell me? We'll see whether you know about this. What is this Miss? What is the first one? MS. It's okay, you may be wrong, but according to what you know, what is this Miss, the second Miss and the third one? Yes? Anybody who knows?
First Miss we use for adult.
Sorry Puta, can you repeat it again?
First Miss we use for adult women.
First Miss කියන part එක මට ඇහෙනවා, ඊට පස්සේ ටික ඇහෙන්නේ නැහැ. Yes?
We use for adult women.
For?
Adult.
Adult. Okay. Any other answer? Any other answer? Yes? What is second one?
It is for unmarried ones.
Very good. This is for second one is for unmarried one. Third one is for
Married ones.
very good. Then what is for the first one? Yeah? So, first one is when you don't want to say whether you are married or unmarried. MS means that doesn't say whether you are married or not. The person, anybody outside cannot identify. Now, it has been a trend to use MS. People don't want to say whether you are married or not to outsiders, right. So, you have to know these things, huh? These are general things. And fourth one, you know, Mr. is for the gentlemen's, right. And what is this final one, MX? So, my dear students, these are things that comes up in the new century. So, MX is where you don't want to say your gender, right. So, you know, though we are in Sri Lanka, even in Sri Lanka now that is coming, I mean those concepts are emerging, right. So, we talk about gender equality and equity, everything. So, that is where I think you have had a session as well in the intensive course as well, I mean in the integration program. So, yeah, People who do not like to say their gender, they use this MX, right. So, these things you need to learn, and these are things like magic to us in Sri Lanka, but if you go abroad, these are very simple things and you should know about these things, right. So, this is another thing that you learn today, I think, right. So, see, the ladies, the girls, you have 3 choices to make, right. So, it is up to you to decide what to use. So, now we were talking about title matter and Miss, Mrs, Mr, and what is doctor, you know, that is used for doctors and also for the people who, I mean, in a kind of a university context, right. Even apart from university context also you can have a doctorate or a PhD. So, they use this title doctor, right. So, when you come to university you will see these lots of titles. So, now see, follow a woman's preference in being addressed as Miss, Mrs or Miss. If you are unsure of woman's preference in being addressed, use Miss, right. So, this is very important because we do not know sometimes whether a person is married or not, right. So, then you do not have to bother, just use a Miss, right. And then if there is a possibility that the person to whom you are writing is a doctor or some other title, use that title. So, maybe now especially if you, as you are going to deal with the university context, you will meet professors, you will meet doctors, you will meet engineers as well, right. So, see the way their names are written. You can go to the profiles and see in the university website, right. And so, these are some of the main things with regard to inside address, meaning you need to write the name of the person with the title. Title means this part, Miss, Mr or Miss, or this doctor, professor, anything, and the address should come inside address, the address of the receiver. Imagine, for example, you are writing a letter to the head of the department of your department, right. So, what is the inside address then? Head, Department of Tourism Studies, Faculty of Management, Uvalas University. That is the inside address, right. Also, you can write the, I mean, you can actually write the name as well there, or else you can edit that later as well, because we use it in the salutation, right. Okay, now this is the other component, sender's address, date, inside address and the salutation. So, what is this salutation? So, use the same name as the inside address including the personal title. If you know the person's name, use the name rather than the title. So, what happens in a salutation is, I hope you are so familiar to this, right. You use dear, that is the most, that is the salutation you use, there is no other word that is common, right. This is the most common word, dear, and you can write the name Mr. Pereira, right. If you do not know the name, see here, now you know, if you know the name you can write like this, dear Mr. Pereira, dear Ms. Adhikari. If you do not know the name, what you do? In generally you use dear sir or madam. If you do not know the gender but the name, then you can write, now see the title is missing here, because sometimes there are some names which sounds like male to us, but she is a female, right. So, the best thing is if you do not know the reader's gender, you can write the dear sir or madam, right. That is the most thing, or the most common thing, right. So, here it says use a colon rather than a comma to follow the salutation, but we usually actually use a comma, right. So, make it a point to use a comma at the end of a salutation, right. Then the other important component, subject line. What is the subject line? Subject line is, my dear students, is like the topic. See here, topic of your letter. You might want to draw the immediate attention to the topic of your letter. Thus, a subject line would look very professional in this instance. Its proper place is below the salutation. So, below the salutation we write the subject line or the topic. I hope you can, I hope you are familiar with the email also, there is a subject where you write the topic, right. So, similar thing. So, remember this is as I told you again really important. Why? Because the reader, if it is a bit of a long letter or the reader quickly, can you remember those skimming and scanning skills? You quickly go through you quickly scan the title. What's about this? Is it about an invitation, or is it about a workshop? Is it about a meeting? Is it about cancelling something or postponing something, right? So, because you will understand when you go to a working environment, it's so much busy, it's engaging, you have very limited amount of times to do certain things, right. So, then the subject line is where you very precisely write the topic of your letter, right. Okay. So, I think there is a student who has switched on the mic. Could you please unmute yourself? I am sorry, mute yourself, right? Otherwise, it will make a noise. So, please try to keep on mute when you are not talking, right? Well, we will move on to the next component. Now, we have discussed few components. If you go from here to there, subject line, salutation, inside address, date, sender's address. Now, we will come to the middle part of the letter, which is bit longer, which you use to write all the details you want. What is this? This is the body part, right. So, for this block format or modified block formats, single space left justify each paragraph within the body of the letter. So, especially if you are typing this word, you can use this or the justification, all these right, the alignments of the paragraphs, right. Leave a blank line between each paragraph. This is very important. Now, see itself, now imagine this entire paragraph number 1, paragraph number 2, paragraph number 3, right. Imagine these 3 paragraphs itself is a body of a letter. මේ paragraphs 3 letter එකක body part එක කියලා හිතුවොත් පුතා බලන්න කොච්චර පැහැදිලිද කියලා, right. So, you have to leave a space, keep this in mind, right, because letters you can't write pages and pages, you write things very precisely, but you need to organize, you need to organize the things in the body part as in separate paragraphs, right. The first paragraph of a typical business letter should state the main purpose. Now, I am pretty sure that there is no much of a worry of writing the addresses, dates, salutations and also even the subject line. But when you come to the body paragraph, you have to be very serious. ඒක තමයි ඔයගොල්ලෝ හොඳට organize කරලා ලියන්න ඕනේ. Now see, always in a first paragraph of a letter, my dear students, you must mention the purpose of your letter. You should state the main purpose. So, say begin with a friendly opening, then quickly transition into the purpose of your letter. Use several sentences to explain your purpose, but do not go into detail until the next paragraph. So, within the first paragraph, you can start with a very complimentary tone, right? Not like, hi, how are you doing? No, you write those in informal letters. Now, we are talking about formal or official letters, right? But again, you can have a friendly opening, we will see, we will be talking about that. And then you have to use several sentences, right? But again, keep in mind, you can't go into much detail because there are some other paragraphs to come. The second paragraph states the information regarding your purpose, right? This may take the form of background information, right? Statistics or first-hand accounts, right? A few short paragraphs within the body of the letter should be enough to convey your message, right. So, the second paragraph states the specific information. Now, imagine you need to talk about, you are going to plan a workshop. We are going to plan, we will take an interesting one, you are going to plan a concert of your students, right. Imagine from your faculty, you are going to have a concert or you are going to have a football match, right. We will take a football match, right. So, what happens? You need to write in the first paragraph that you, this is the purpose, we are from the department or we are from this faculty and we have suggested to organize a football match, inter-faculty football match, inter-faculty football match. That is the main purpose, you have said your purpose. You go to the second paragraph and you say, this inter-faculty football match is held for the 10th consecutive year and we are planning to conduct this on these 2 days at the university ground, right, with the invitation of the, as the chief guest of maybe the vice chancellor and the dean of the faculty, like that, right. So, that is the second paragraph. Did you understand? You go into specific details in the second paragraph, right. So, that is how you create it. So, see how organized it is, isn't it, right. Next, the closing paragraph, right. So, maybe it's totally depending on your purpose, the amount of content that you want to write, right. So, there maybe even could be 2-3 paragraphs, 1 the introductory paragraph, 2, 3, maybe 4 and then the final paragraph, right. So, it is depending on the purpose. So, the closing paragraph briefly restates your purpose, right. So, it restates the purpose and why it is important. You should mention it, something like that. Now, if you take the same example, the football match, so you can say the students to have the collaboration among the students, right, or to something like that, right, to make the students engaged in extracurricular activities, right. So, yeah. And then if the purpose of your letter is employment related, consider ending your letter with your contact information. Now, we will think about something like this. You are requesting something from a company or you need to get something done from a particular person, right. So, then you need to mention your contact information as well. You say, now imagine you are assigned with a task. You are assigned with the task of collecting articles for a magazine. You are one of the editor or somebody, right. So, at the end of the paragraph, towards the closure of the paragraph, right. So, you can mention your information. So, please feel free to contact me and you can write the telephone number for any clarification, for any further clarification. Maybe you have seen these in emails, right. So, if that is something employment related, meaning that if you are the person who need to be contacted for that particular matter, if there is any question, if there is want a clarification, if you are the person who want to contact, then you need to mention your contact information as well. So, then the receiver or the reader, right, maybe if there is no time to write a letter back or write a response letter back, then maybe they can immediately contact you and verify the issue, right. Did you understand that? Okay. However, if the purpose is informational, think about closing with gratitude for the reader's time, right. So, if you feel that if the purpose is informational, right. So, if the purpose, if you want to get more information about certain thing, right, think about closing with gratitude of the reader's time. What is the meaning of that? If you, very simply, if the letter is so long, right, So, you need to thanks for your time, thanks for reading this letter. Thank you so much. I am really grateful for spending your valuable time in reading this letter. I kindly appreciate spending time in reading this letter, right. So, that is what it said. So, can you see now, even in the previous was it in the previous, no, I will be doing that part in conversational skills, right. I was talking about, I told you even, being polite is very important, right. So, maybe even if you want to refuse something, even if you cannot give this to something, if you cannot fulfill the requirement of a person, then even you need to say that thing, communicate it in a very polite manner, right. So, that is why we use these things. If there is you can let the person, you can let the reader get your personal contact, right. So, the reader will feel very happy, because there is a much more effective communication tool, right, and the person has allowed you to freely contact you. And especially this last point, closing with gratitude for the reader's time. See how polite it is. You are thanking even for reading this letter. That is how you get the things done, is not it? That is how you should be strategical to get your work done. Why I told you? You always do these things for a purpose. You always do these things for to get something done. So, in order to fulfill your requirement, you need to be strategical, and the language is the best thing to do it, and what you simply need to do it, use the language in a polite manner, right. So, when writing a business letter, be careful to remember that conciseness is very important. Can one of you tell me what is conciseness? Do you know what is its meaning, conciseness? What is conciseness, my dear students? Being concise. What is that? Sorry?
එකඟතා
No, darling, not ekangata. Concise. Concise means being very precise, being very to the point, right. That is why I told you, you can't write pages and pages in writing letters. No, it is not a book, right. You have to be very precise, you have to be concise, you have to be to the point. That is where you need skills such as summarizing, when you can write pages and pages of an event, but you summarize the key points only. Did you understand, right? So, that is why, because now even in writing emails, writing memorandums, when you learn them you will understand, or if you are interested you can go and search, you write things in very short form, right. You do things very precisely, because in business environment, that is why I told you, people are very busy, people have work to do, right. So, now does there the letter ends? No, right. The closing begins at the same vertical point as your date and one line after the last body paragraph, right. So, I think I need to add one more thing here. Remember, right, I should add this. You must include, my dear students, thank you. Have you seen that? This is very important. These are like compulsory things, right. At the end of your body paragraph, I mean the final paragraph, right, what you do is leave a line and say thank you, put a full stop, and then you start this closing part, right? You must write that. So, the complementary clause, we call it Putta as the complementary clause, right? It should appear 2 lines below the last line of the body. Capitalize only the first letter of the first word and always end the line with a comma. Now see here, sincerely, yours truly, yours faithfully, right? There are also different things. But do you know that you can use only one thing for your formal writings? This is what you can use for your formal writing. If it is a formal letter, you have to use this yours sincerely. See, Y is capital, S is simple, there is a comma. If that is an informal letter, then you can use yours faithfully or yours lovely, anything, because it is informal, right? This is the way you have to follow, right? Faithfully is used for informal letters. Please make it a point to remember that, right? So, sincerely is where you use it for the formal. This is we call as the closure or the complementary clause, right? There is another part, the signature block. This is the most interesting part where you put your beautiful signature, right? Atsana. Signature block includes your signature and name, title, and this is the other important part. A letter without a signature is of no value, right? If you are a professional, right, you must know these things, my dear students. If there is no signature in a letter, there is no value, right? Because it is the signature that confirms the validity of the information contained in it, right. That is why people try to do very forging signatures. I hope you have heard forging signatures, right. People do illegal things with signatures because a signature is a very important matter. It is a serious thing because it confirms the validity of a certain, maybe a document or anything, right. Your signature should be in blue or black ink, it's depending on the purpose. Allow 4 vertical spaces for your signature. The identification line contains your type name, and if you have one, your title placed below your type name, right. I will show you all these things. We will compose kind of a draft, right. So, this is the signature block where you put your sign, right, your signature, you sign there, and then you write your name and your title. That is more than enough. Okay, that is the signature block. So, these are the main elements. These are the most common, general, basic elements in a letter. If you start from the first, sender's address or the letter head, date, inside address or the receiver's address, salutation, subject line, body with paragraphs, and then thank you, and then the complementary clause, signature block. Those are the elements, key elements of a letter. But do you know there are some additional elements, right? I hope you are learning this today, because you should know. Maybe you are not including these elements, but if you receive a letter with these elements, you should know what they are, what is the purpose of them, right. So, first one, now remember these are in this shortened form, NCL, right, enclosure notation. If you have enclosed any documents along with the letter, such as a resume, you indicate this simply by typing enclosures below the closing. For instance, if you have included many documents and need to ensure that the recipient is aware of each document, it may be a good idea to list the names, right. So, sometimes you will receive such things, maybe not, but remember this is the purpose. Enclosure notation mean, my dear students, if you attach something to a letter, then you use this enclosure notation, right. You write as enclosures and list down it. But sometimes you also mention in the body part itself, right. I have enclosed these attachments for your reference, and you write annexure 1, annexure 2, annexure 3. For example, the NIC, the national identity card, birth certificate and the degree certificate, right. So, we tend to use this annexures way of including it, but remember this NCAL is for that, enclosure notation, not NCAL, ENCL, that is a shortened form, enclosure notation. If you have seen something like this, meaning that this has some attachments. Why this is important for us? Why even including these annexures in the letter, right? Why this is important? Then if in case the receiver hasn't received these attachments, then I mean he at least know there were some attachments. If it is lost, you can contact the person and inform it. The attachments are not there, right? Or you can search for it. That is why it is important, right? The enclosure notation. There are some more. This you have seen, isn't it? Carbon copy notation, CC. This meaning usually includes names of people to whom you distribute the copies. This is familiar to you. Have you seen CC somewhere else? Can you all tell me? People from Zoom? Yes? Have you seen CC before? Where?
Emails?
Very good. It is in email. You have two, as where you can include the sender's, the receiver's email, right, and then subject, and if you go further in this two, you can then see CC, BCC, right. So, you should know all these things. I mean, you know, maybe some of, if you do not know, you need to know about them. What is the purpose of them? What they are referred to, right. So, even in a letter you use this CC or the carbon copy notation to include names of the people to whom you distribute the copies, right. So, the person who receives a letter can see whether and where the copies are sent, right. So, especially when you get when you want to get done something, then you can send copies to few people as well, right. But that is again totally depending on about your politeness and etiquettes, right. So, you should not misuse such options, isn't it, right. You should never misuse any of them. But anyways, this is for CC purpose or the carbon copy notations, where you include it for to show to whom you have copied this email or to whom you send the copies of these, right. Now, for example, if you want to make any requirement or a request regarding something related to examinations, right. So, you inform it to your head of the department and also you copy that to examination division, something like that. I am saying an example, right. That is a carbon copy notation. Then postscript, PS. What is this? This is good for you. This is written when the writer forgets to include an important point in the message, but we do not usually see these because we get the letter printed, or if there is any mistake we again print it. But do you think that earlier people had these printers and huge amount of papers to waste? No, even the ink it is very hard to find. So, postscript is where you can use it to write something if the writer forgets it while compiling the letter. Okay. Now, did you understand these are some of the other additional elements, right? enclosure notation, carbon copy notation and postscript, right. Okay. So, now we will quickly get the summary of the format, because I told you format you can't freely do things, you have to follow the format, right. Okay. So, this is how it will look like. I will take you through again the content, the elements, the components, right. So, where does it start? It starts with the sender's address, and also remember, if it is not, you can also use the header, sorry, the letter head we call it, letter head. Then comes the date, remember the American and British ways, right, or the full numeric way, and then comes the inside address. Keep in mind about the titles, you should be very particular, right, do not make any mistakes of the titles, especially now when you come to these titles of the lecturers, right, be sure about what is it, is it Miss, Mr. or Doctor or Professor, right, because they have, now if it is especially a qualified, I mean a title which shows about a qualification or a kind of a such a title, do not make any mistakes, because they have worked hard so much to earn such a title, right. So, should be very particular. Then after the inside address comes the what? Salutation. So, it is very easy for us to find it, where we use dear and write the name and comma, right. Then what comes next? Can you all tell me? Yes? After the salutation? Yes, my dear students? Where are the FOM students? What comes next? I am waiting for your answer. Yes? After salutation?
Headline.
Yes?
Headline.
Can you talk louder? Okay, headline or the subject line, right, or the topic, simply topic, right. And remember, if you are, now this is something additional again, I just came, it just came to my mind. If you are writing the subject line, if you are typing it, keep in mind to make it bold and underline. Even, sorry, underline, even if you are writing it, make it a point to underline, right. You always, I mean the topics are usually underlined, so remember to underline, okay. Then comes what? The body, right, the body which has several paragraphs, right. Keep that in mind. And then come what? Immediately after the paragraph, thank you comes with the full stop. Then comes the complementary clause, yours sincerely and a comma. And then comes the signature block, right, signature block meaning your signature, your name and your title. Title means put a, the designation. Imagine now I am writing Samarakoon, lecturer. You can write even the department, right. That is the signature block. So, there the letter ends actually. What are the things that we learned as additional elements? enclosure notation CC, PS, that is all, right. This is some pledge. Now, did you understand? Now, can you see now this is not just because of the bullets, but also this is left aligned. That is the main important thing in full block format, right. You have to keep that in mind. Okay. Now, you are clear with the format of a letter, right. Please do not make mistakes, my dear students. I do not want to see any mistakes when you compile a letter, particularly an official letter, right. Now, we will go, now you know the format, now we will go to some of the different types of letters, right. So, I told you depending on the purpose you can have different types of letters, okay. So, now see the first one, the first category is letters of request. Dear students, that is the most common type of letters we write, because if you want to get done something, I told you the written way of communication is the most best way, right, of communicating. So, letters of request is the most common letter that we write. So, see, it says put the reader at ease and help her or him feel that responding will not be troublesome, right. Put the reader at ease mean, my dear students, compel the reader to read the letter, right, and help her or him feel that responding will not be troublesome, because you are making a request now, right, you are asking for something. So, the reader should feel, to give this, right, that is where you need to work. Second point, be brief and right to the point, very important. I told you from the very beginning, preciseness, conciseness, to the point is very important. That is why here it says be brief, ketien, to the point, right. Third one, acknowledge the receiver. This is the entire usual talk about being polite. I told you, try to acknowledge the, not try, write something to acknowledge your receiver appropriately. You can't write from the beginning to the end, thank you, thank you, thank you. No, that is not necessary. You include a thank you as well. But again, if you want to give some special acknowledgement, you can include that. Then, give your contact details so they can reach you easily. So, remember, in letter of request, you can usually write or give those contact details, because you are requesting something, right. So, maybe the receiver or the person to you write, maybe through a contact detail, it will be easier to communicate, right, maybe an email, right. Now, see some of the expressions that you can use. I am writing to request. These are the things where you can start your letter. I am in need of. I would like to bring to your kind notice. See, right? You do not just write I need this, I want to get this done. No, I am writing to request. I am in need of. I would like to bring to your kind notice. And I will add something additional here. Remember, in such letters, especially in letters of request, you usually write the subject line or the topic as what? Requesting. Requesting. Requesting, we will take a very general one, leave, because you tend to get leave for certain things. This will be the way how you can start your subject line or the topic of the letter, right. The best indication is, my dear students, you start with the word requesting, requesting a leave, requesting a computer, requesting the library facilities. Did you understand, right? Requesting is the way you start it. So that's why I told you, once the letter is received, the receiver quickly scan the title. Before going to read on and on all the details, you quickly read the title. Did you understand, right? That's where some people use urgent in the letters, right? Even in emails especially, right? But you should not, I told you this, don't use urgent in everywhere, but people tend to use it because the first thing you read is usually maybe where the letter came, and also especially the subject line or the topic, right? Now you know about letter of request, why you write letter of request when you want to get something done, when you require something, right? And these are some of the expressions that you can use. We will go to the next one, letters of inquiry. Inquiry means what? Inquiry means questioning. You are seeking for information, right? And then letter of inquiry, let's see, letter of inquiry is a request for information that the writer believes the reader can provide. Now, you can write a letter of inquiry from a university. Now, I am telling an example from university. Now, we will take a private university, right, about the degrees you offer. Or you can also ask for a letter of inquiry whether you take applications or get admissions for the next intake, right. Especially if you go to a foreign university, I mean if you want to go for that, you can send these letters of inquiry. What are the subject areas available? How the semesters are organized, right. Then second one, the action taken can benefit either the writer or the reader, and sometimes both. That being the case, the scope must include enough information to help the reader determine how best to respond. So, in a letter of inquiry, sometimes the benefit can go to the writer or to the reader. අපි මොකක් හරි දෙයක් ගැන අහද්දී ඒකේ benefit එක ලියන කෙනාටම වෙන්නත් පුළුවන්, but maybe even to the benefit goes to the others. Now, for example, you are seeking for a job opportunity. Now, the company is also getting the benefit, isn't it? Because you are telling that I am qualified in these and these areas, and I am inquiring whether you have job opportunities or job openings in your company in the next few months, in the next year. So, see, the benefit goes to sometimes the receiver as well. Did you understand? So, that is why it says here, the scope must include enough information to help the reader determine how best to respond. So, especially if you are going to see for any of the job opportunities, then you can give a good introduction to you can introduce yourself to the company, maybe attach a resume, attach some of the working experiences that you had, right. So, things like that. You should be very informative. Number 3, the objective in an inquiry letter is to make a request, right. So, even though we inquire certain things, we question from them, we want to look for something, but again there could be a request as well. Next one, your inquiry should be specific and brief, right. So, that is why I told you can explain, but you do not go on and on explain, you should be specific as well, right. Then the scope of an inquiry letter should provide enough information for the reader to grasp your objective and make an informed decision and respond in a timely manner. That is why I told you the inquiry letter should provide enough information as well, right. You can't just mention things in a haphazard manner, right, from here and there, you organizedly compose your letter, right. Then the receiver can give a very good response to you, a very effective response to you. Okay? So, that is how you that is how you need to think about when you write a letter of inquiry. Okay, right. Now, we will move on to response letters, right. Now, what is this response letters? We will see. A response letter provides the answers or information requested in a letter of inquiry. Then what is it? Simply a reply letter. අපි දැන් send ගේ පැත්තේ විතරයි හිතන්නේ. දැන් අපි receiver කෙනෙක් reply කරන කෙනෙක් කොහොමද කියලා බලමු. How a reply letter should be. The objective is to satisfy the reader with an action that fulfills their request. Keep in mind, right? Whenever you write a reply letter, it should satisfy the receiver or the person who sent it, right? A response letter should be addressed to a person from whom a request or inquiry has been received, right? A response letter should be addressed to a person from whom a request or inquiry has been received. It's very simple, no? So, you write a reply for a request you had or a request you got. The objective of a response letter is to satisfy the reader with an answer. You should give them an answer. That is why I told you. Now, we will come to that point. Even if you cannot fulfill the requirement, even if the request has to be rejected, then again you have to tell it in you have to say it, right. You can't just give a vague answer. Vague answer mean puta, it's not a clear answer. If it is yes, if it is a, it's yes if it is a yes, it's no if it is a no. But what we are always talking, being polite, right? We will talk about it. So, but you should give an answer to it. Now, imagine you can't fulfill the requirement or think that there are no job opportunities. Can you just stay silent? No. It's not a good etiquette. It's not a good practice. You can say, you can reply to it, right? Those are communication ethics, right? Or action that fulfills the request of an inquiry, the answer either informs the reader of the respondent's ability to provide the information or of a willingness to act on their behalf in some other way. What does this mean? Now, I told you a reply letter should give an answer. That is number one. And the other thing is, now I told you about the yes or no answer, right? So, there also you can be polite by telling some of the other alternatives. Alternatives, that is the word we use. If you can't go in this way, what are the other options? What are the other alternatives that the reader can look into? That is how you satisfy the customer. That is how you satisfy the reader, right? That is how you are being so polite. You are so nice. It's very nice of you, right? So, that is how. So, your answer should be specific and brief again, right. So, everything should be specific and brief in professional environment, right. Okay. So, this is about response letters. Now, we will see how to refuse a request. Now, I told you when you have to reject something, when the answer is a no to something, then you need to refuse it. How to do this? A letter is also an ideal medium for refusing requests as well as making them. Now, you only think about the part where you can make request, isn't it? But do you know it is the best way to refuse them as well, right? So, see here, see the bold wordings, the style, the tone, the voice should be formal. Now, you must be imagine Harry Potter ge wage katha karana liyumakda kiyala me tone ekak gana katha karanne. No, right? Even when you are using the language, it gives a particular tone. I mean, when you write even, it has a particular tone, my dear students. Okay? So, all these should be formal. And what should be the structure of refusing a request? Now see, now you are learning something really important. Number 1, you start by thanking the writer. These are, as I told you, these are strategies. You first thank the writer for the request. Maybe for example, now imagine you were asked about job opportunities. Don't you think that this person has faith in your company? The person admits that your company is a good company. It is a standard and accepted company, right? For that itself you can thank, isn't it, right? Number 2, turn her or him down gently. මේ මොකක්ද කියන්නේ? වට්ටන්න කියලාද කියන්නේ? හරවන්න කියලාද කියන්නේ? No. What does it say? From the very beginning, you give a thank and then turn him gently down, like you can say maybe a few reasons or what is the existing situation of your company. Maybe if that's again, if you stick to the same example of job opportunities, maybe the company is now maybe about to close, maybe about to switch the places. So, something like that. You can't create stories, but think about some of the things that you can say as maybe excuses or reasons, right. Number 3, give the reasons why you are doing so, right. That is what I told you. By giving reasons, you turn him down gently. Gently කියන්නේ ඒකයි. That's can you remember I told you in the morning also, this is a gentle reminder to all the FOM students to join. ඇයි එහෙම කියන්නේ? This is a reminder to you to join. I command you to join. See the difference? This is a gentle reminder to you to join. You politely, in a nice way, in a friendly tone, you say this. Did you understand now? Right? So, this is what is meant by that. And the final one is, if appropriate, offer her an alternative to her original request. I told you, it is a very beautiful, a very polite way. If the answer is a no, you can give alternatives. No, that's totally okay, right? You can go other, you can make the reader to go to other options. So, there are some handy phrases. Let us see. Thanks for your interest. Now, I told you to thank to the writer, right? Thanks for your interest, thanks for your concern, right? And here it is here, I appreciate your offer, I am flattered. මොකද්ද flattered කියන්නේ? අපි කියන්නේ මුරුංගත්තේ තියෙනවා කියලා when you like excessively say very positive things, when you become so happy or beautiful, thank you so much for having such a faith on our company, right? I really admire. Unfortunately, see the words you can say all those thanks and then start, unfortunately our company at the moment or currently is surviving with the maximum number of employees, something like that, right. I am afraid, see, I am unable, I am afraid that I will be able to give you an exact word whether there will be job openings during the next few months. I am unable to assure you that there will be this post vacant within the next few months. Did you understand, my dear students? Right? See how you can play the game with the words. That is why you should be fluent in the language, right? That is why you should know these expressions and phrases. Okay, right? So, now you know beautiful phrases, the strategies that you need to use, right, when you write, especially this refusing a request, because you will get these opportunities one day, right. You might have to write these letters one day. Okay, right. So, now with that we come to the very last part of the session, right. So, if you I just recall back what we did today. From the start we talked about informal, formal letters, how formal letters are important, how formal letters can impact on the image of the person who writes it and also the image of the organization. And then we came to know about the full block format where we follow it for the formal letters. But can you remember I told you, you must always adhere to the format that your the institution follows, right. But once again, if there is if you are free, you can use this particular full block format. And the main characteristic is all the components are left aligned, right. And can you remember the components? Sender's address or letterhead, date, inside address, salutation, subject line or the topic, and then the body with the different number of paragraphs very organizedly, right. And then comes thank you, then the complement closure, and then the signature block. And also can you remember the additional elements, the enclosure notations, carbon copy notation, and then the postscript. And then we talked about few of the different types of letters, letters of request, then letters of inquiry, and then we talked about response letters and especially how to refuse a request. Can you remember all these things? I hope it is very clear to you, and please do not make any mistakes in composing a letter, right, because I have taught you this today. So, from hereafter do not make mistakes, please be very careful, be very serious, even the comma, even the full stop, even underlining, even leaving the space, right. Most importantly, leave a space after each component, right, leave a space after each paragraph. So, please keep these things in mind. Before wrapping it up, right, there are some few tasks I lined up, right, or I thought of, where you can give it a try and see by composing a letter, right. So, we will see the first task. Write a letter to a higher educational institute asking for information on about diploma courses for students after A-levels. Explain what kind of courses you are interested in and the cost, and also look for the information on the accommodation facilities. So, see, now to get done such a purpose, you can write a letter. If you want to try, give it a try and see, yeah, you will get a reply letter. Or if you give your information, maybe your phone number and email, right, because today the things are, as I told you, they are more much into technology. So, maybe your reply will come through the contact information. Please make sure to write the email as well. It is a very, as you know, email writings and communication via email is so much effective, especially with the time factor, right. So, you can give it a try. Task number 2, write a letter to the head of your department requesting permission to conduct a science exhibition at your university. Include all the necessary details. So, I am pretty sure once you come to your university, you will have beautiful, various, colorful, different activities, occasions, functions, right. And then you have to write these different kinds of letters, right. So, then my lesson will be important. Yeah? Okay. And you can also write response letters for those request and inquiry letters to these tasks as well. So, then you get to know, you can give it a try and see about requesting and inquiring, plus you can also try and see writing a response letter. So, do it your own, no need of anybody else, right. Practice and happy writing. So, with this I will wind up the session for today. Happy writing to all of you and have a good day. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining with us.